Genius's mystery. Jan van Eyck. In 1420s, Bruges canals meandered like silver ribbons. The whispers of merchants mingled with spices from the east, and the fragrance of court secrets. A man in a dark robe walked quietly across a stone bridge. In his hand, he held a secret decree from the Duke of Burgundy. He was not a professional diplomat, nor a trained spy, at least not on the surface. He was Jan van Eyck, a painter who emerged from the mists of history, a magician who captured light and shadow with oil paint. His paintings were like a window to another world. On the surface, they were portraits of the mortal world, but deep within, they held sacred whispers. In that era, he was the first to dare inscribe his motto, "As I can," on a picture frame. This phrase was both a humble sigh and a proud declaration, and history proved that he truly achieved the ultimate. Jan van Eyck's birth is as hazy as the backgrounds of his paintings. Around 1390, he was born in the small town of Eyck in the Netherlands, to a gentry family. Though the exact date is unknown, his childhood is more like an unfinished silver point sketch, only scattered records piece together an outline. A versatile young man, fluent in Latin, Greek, and even Hebrew. Perhaps he patiently copied illuminated manuscripts in a monastery, or perhaps he had already stepped into the shadows of the court. His older brother Hubert van Eyck was an even more mysterious and colossal figure. For a long time, some suspected he never existed, merely a mythical predecessor invented by Jan. It wasn't until modern science penetrated the surface of the oil paint that his traces were confirmed in the old underdrawings. In 1422, Jan first officially appeared in historical archives, painting court portraits for John of Bavaria. By then, he was already revered as master, but his past, like a reflection at the bottom of a Bruges canal, swayed with the ripples indistinct and alluring. In 1426, his brother Hubert died, leaving behind a grand unfinished project, the Ghent Altarpiece. This masterpiece, commissioned by Jules Vige and his wife, is housed in St. Bavo's Cathedral in Ghent. Jan took up the brush. In 1432, he completed its 20 panels, which unfold layer by layer, like a divine drama. The outer panels depict the donors in grisile, like solidified sculptures. Once opened, the inner panels are an explosion of color, a mysterious and sublime adoration. The mystic lamb bleeds on an Eden-like meadow, surrounded by knights and angels, with a vision of Jerusalem in the distance. Jan layered oil paints to create an unprecedented tactile and visual experience. Dewdrops tremble on petals, and jewels reflect shimmering, rainbow-like light. It is as if dust motes are dancing in the air. Legend has it that this painting holds the secrets of alchemy, but Jan did not sign his own name on this magnificent masterpiece. Instead, he left a rather meaningful and thought-provoking Latin quatrain on the frame. Hubert van Eyck, a painter greater than any, began this work. Jan, his brother, second in art, completed it at his request. These lines give the glory to his deceased brother and keep the humility for himself. That year, artists across Europe trembled before the painting. The Northern Renaissance was thus ignited by this light. Jan's technique was indeed like an alchemist's recipe. He didn't invent oil painting that ancient art already existed, but he perfected it. By mixing pigments with linseed oil and applying glazes in layers, he allowed light to penetrate the colors and reflect back, making the painting seem to breathe. In 1434, he painted a portrait for the Italian merchant Giovanni di Niccolao Arnolfini and his wife. That Arnolfini portrait is now a treasure of the National Gallery in London. In the room, the couple stands hand in hand before a window. This too is a magic of light and shadow. Only one candle is lit on the chandelier, and the crystal prayer beads by the bed refract the faint daylight. The little dog at their feet symbolizes fidelity. What is most breathtaking is the convex mirror in the center of the back wall. Reflected in the mirror are two tiny visitors, one of whom wears a red turban and is very likely Jan himself. On the wall above this mirror, Jan wrote a line in ornate, calligraphic Latin. It is not a typical signature, but a declaration akin to a legal testimony. Jan van Eyck was here, 1434. Is this a marriage contract or a display of power? The light in the mirror seems to whisper that the painter is not just a recorder, he is present between reality and illusion. And his famous motto, "As I can," was inscribed by him on the wooden frames of other paintings. For example, the famous portrait of a man in a red turban. This bold statement, disguised as a humble phrase, acts as an eternal footnote, reminding the world that this is the limit of mortal skill. His life was much more than just his canvas. In 1425, Jan was employed by Duke Philip the Good of Burgundy, Europe's wealthiest patron. The Duke treasured him, not only giving him a generous salary and creative freedom, but even sending him on a mission to Lisbon for secret negotiations for the Duke's wedding. Jan's travels, like his paintings, had multiple meanings. On the surface, it was a diplomatic marriage proposal. Deep down, it might have been a spy mission to gather intelligence for the Duke. He depicted foreign landscapes, the coast of Portugal, distant mountains with details as precise as a military map. He also had worldly happiness. He married Margaret van Eyck. In the portrait he left of his wife, Margaret gazes forward, her eyes gentle yet firm. On the frame, Jan, as usual, inscribed "As I can," as if to say, "This is the truest love I am capable of painting." On the 9th of July, 1441, Jan died in Bruges at the age of only 51. He was buried in the Church of Saint Donation, and the Duke specially paid a gratuity for his requiem mass as a sign of mourning. His workshop was left with a pile of unfinished works, hastily completed by his assistants. But his legend never ceased. Some say he mastered a secret formula that kept his pigments from ever fading. Others say he used his brush to decipher the Bible's riddles about light. The Ghent Altarpiece still holds countless unsolved mysteries, like the eyes of the lamb. After several repaintings, why were they finally changed to human-like eyes that stare directly at the viewer? Jan van Eyck's life was like a multi-paneled altarpiece. The outer layer shows the glory of a court painter and the shrewdness of a diplomat. The inner layer, the soul of a mysterious alchemist. He captured light with oil paint, yet left behind more shadows. In every reflection, in every suspended mote of dust, a whisper still echoes in the museum air. As I can, but can you see the truth within it?